Have you ever whispered in the darkness, "Why can't I stop? Why does this keep pulling me back?" That sinking feeling, that familiar ache, the weight of a secret you've carried so long it feels like part of your bones. Listen closely. What if I told you that what you call your addiction isn't addiction at all? What if the very thing you hate about yourself is actually the cry of your soul reaching for what it was made for? Picture a heart surrounded by shadows, stretching trembling hands toward a glowing apple, the promise of satisfaction, of relief, of finally feeling alive. But the moment it's bitten, it turns to ash in your mouth. This is how it feels, isn't it? Immediate promise that conceals slow erosion, a fire that burns but never warms, a well that promises water but delivers sand. You've been here before. So many times you've lost count. Whether you're 45 or 75, whether you share a bed with someone who's been there for decades, or you've been alone so long you've forgotten what touch without shame feels like. The ache is the same. King David knew this ache. The man after God's own heart cried out, "I am lonely and afflicted." Think about that. David, warrior, king, worshipper, the one who danced before the Lord, the one who wrote the Psalms you read for comfort. He knew the crushing weight of loneliness that drives us to dark places. You see, this struggle isn't simply about self-control. It's not about being weak or broken or uniquely sinful. It's about a deeper hunger, a yearning planted in every human heart from Eden, the yearning to be seen, to be known, to be held, to belong. When God said, "It is not good for man to be alone," He wasn't just talking about marriage. He was talking about the fundamental design of your soul. You were made for intimacy, real intimacy, holy intimacy. But somewhere along the way, that holy desire got twisted. Maybe it was when trust was broken. Maybe when love came with conditions. Maybe when you learned that being truly known meant being rejected. So you learned to reach for counterfeit intimacy, a dark well you drink from when your soul aches for connection but fears the cost of being seen. The enemy whispers in that ache, "Can you hear him? Hide this. You're too broken for grace. This is who you are. This is all you'll ever be." But these are lies, ancient lies. The same lies he's been telling since a garden long ago. The truth? Your struggle is less about moral failure and more about unhealed loneliness, abandoned places in your heart where love was supposed to live, rooms you've locked because letting anyone in feels like death. Picture yourself as a traveler in a vast desert. The sun beats down, your lips are cracked, your throat burns, and there, shimmering in the distance, an oasis appears. You run, you drink, but the water is salt, and instead of quenching your thirst, it leaves you more desperate than before. This is lust, not the disease, the symptom, the fevered attempt of a dying soul to find water in a wilderness. But you weren't made for salt water, you were made for living water. Remember the woman at the well? John chapter 4. She came at noon, the hottest part of the day, when no one else would be there. Because shame has a way of making us avoid the very connection we're dying for. 5 husbands, currently living with a 6th man, drawing water from a well that never satisfied, day after day, year after year. Sound familiar? But Jesus was waiting at that well, not with judgment, not with 7 steps to purity, not with shame or programs or religious performance. He was waiting with himself. Whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst again. Did you catch that? Never thirst again. Not because desire disappears, but because it finally finds its true home. This battle you're fighting, it's not new. Paul himself laid it bare. What I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate, I do. Picture your inner world like a rope being pulled at both ends. Light pulling one way, shadow pulling the other, and you, caught in the middle, exhausted from the tension. Some days, you feel torn apart, bound by invisible cords, trapped between who you know you were created to be and patterns you can't seem to break. But listen, the very fact that you feel this conflict, that's proof your spirit is alive. The enemy wants you to believe the struggle proves you're condemned. No, it proves you still care. It proves the Spirit of God is still calling you home. Let me tell you something about age and ache. As the years pass, as your body changes, as roles shift, empty nests, retirement, loss, and the wound doesn't heal on its own, it deepens. The masks you've worn for decades become heavier, the performance more exhausting. Maybe you look in the mirror and wonder, who is this person? When did I become someone who sneaks and hides and lies? When did shame become my closest companion? Or maybe you've been fighting so long you're just tired, bone tired, soul tired, tired of the cycle, tired of the promises to God, to yourself, to the spouse who may or may not know but definitely feels the distance. But here's what changes everything. Jesus doesn't stand at a distance with crossed arms. He doesn't wait for you to get cleaned up before he draws near. Remember Peter? Bold, brave Peter. The rock on which Christ would build his church. He denied Jesus 3 times in one night. Not in private, in public, when it mattered most. But what did Jesus do? He sought Peter out. He made breakfast for him on a beach. He restored him with a question repeated 3 times. Do you love me? Not have you stopped sinning. Not have you proven yourself. Just do you love me? Because Jesus knows that love, real love, changes everything. The wound beneath your struggle, can we go there for a moment? Maybe you grew up in a home where emotions were too much, where love came with performance, where being human meant being rejected. Maybe the church taught you law but not grace, rules but not relationship, shame but not salvation. Maybe someone who should have protected you didn't, someone who should have loved you couldn't, someone who should have stayed left. These wounds become tender places, vulnerable places, and in our attempts to protect them, we build walls. But walls that keep pain out also keep love out. And a soul can only live so long without love before it starts dying. You're reaching what you call lust. It's not rebellion. It's a soul gasping for breath, drowning in loneliness, desperate for something, anything, that feels like being alive. But counterfeit water can never satisfy divine thirst. You were made for more. You were made for the real thing. You were made for living water that flows from the throne of God Himself. Imagine it. Right now, in this moment, there's a well of living water available to you. Not tomorrow, when you're better. Not next year, when you've proven yourself. Right now, as you are. With all your failures, all your secrets, all your shame. The same Jesus who met the woman at the well is waiting to meet you. What would it look like to drink deeply from that well? First, it would mean letting yourself be seen, really seen. Not the carefully constructed version you present to the world, but the real you, the one who struggles, who fails, who gets up at 2 a.m. and does things that morning you regrets. It would mean believing, really believing, that grace is bigger than your worst moment, that mercy is new every morning, that nothing you've done can separate you from the love of God. It would mean understanding that your wound isn't your identity. It's the place where grace can enter, where healing can begin, where light can finally reach the darkness you've protected for so long. The path forward isn't about trying harder. You've tried hard enough. It's about surrendering to a love that won't let you go. When the ache comes, and it will come, let it remind you not of your weakness, but of your design. You ache because you were made for intimacy. The ache isn't the problem. Where you take it is, what if, next time, instead of reaching for counterfeit, you reached for the real? What if you let that ache drive you to your knees? To prayer that's more than words but a cry of the heart. To worship that's more than songs but surrender. What if you found one person, just one, safe enough to say, I'm struggling, I need help, I can't do this alone. The Israelites wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, not because the promised land wasn't ready, but because they kept trying to go back to Egypt, to slavery, to bondage. Because sometimes familiar bondage feels safer than unknown freedom. You've been wandering too, maybe for decades, going in circles. The same struggle, the same shame, the same desperate attempts to break free. But the promised land is still there, waiting. Not because you've earned it, but because it was always meant to be yours. There's something about getting older that makes us think change is impossible. Our bones ache, our bodies betray us, our minds feel set in their ways, but souls don't age. And the God who raises the dead can certainly raise a soul that's been buried under shame. Abraham was 75 when God called him to a new land. Moses was 80 when he faced Pharaoh. The thief on the cross found paradise in his final hours. It's never too late for redemption. Never too late for restoration. Never too late to come home. I want to speak to the secret fear you carry, the one that whispers, if people knew the real me, they'd reject me. If God knew what I've done, where I've been, what I still struggle with, he'd turn away. But God already knows. He's always known, and he's never moved, never turned away, never stopped loving you. The cross wasn't for people who had it together. It was for people like us, people who try and fail, who promise and break those promises, who want to be different but don't know how. Grace isn't for the perfect, it's for the desperate, and desperation is the beginning of transformation. Can you imagine? Really imagine? What would your life look like if this burden was lifted? Not perfect, not without struggle, but free, free from the chains of shame, free from the exhausting double life, free to be known and loved anyway. Your marriage could be reborn, even after decades of distance. Your relationship with your children could heal. Your own heart could finally rest. But more than any of that, you could know, really know, that you are loved. Not for what you do or don't do. Not for your success at staying clean. But loved. Period. No conditions. No fine print. The father in the story of the prodigal son didn't wait at the door. He ran. An elderly Middle Eastern man, hiking up his robes, running, undignified, desperate, love making a fool of itself. That's God running toward you, right now, while you're still far off, while you still smell like the pigsty, while shame still clings to you like grave clothes. He's not running to scold you. He's running to embrace you, to put the ring back on your finger, to call for the celebration. Because you were dead, and now you're alive again. You were lost, and now you're found. Your wound, this thing you've hated, hidden, fought against, it can become the very place where grace is most visible, where others who struggle can find hope, where your mess becomes a message, and your test becomes a testimony. Not because you'll never struggle again, but because struggle is no longer the end of the story. Paul had his thorn in the flesh. We don't know what it was. Maybe that's on purpose. So we can all see ourselves there, the thing that wouldn't go away, the weakness that remained. But God said, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Your weakness isn't disqualifying you, it's qualifying you for grace. So where do you go from here? Tonight, before you sleep, try something different. Instead of promises you're not sure you can keep, try honesty. Real, raw honesty. God, I can't do this. I've tried, I've failed, I'm tired. I don't even know if I want to change anymore. But I'm here. Whatever that's worth, I'm here. That prayer, that moves heaven, because it's real, and God can work with real. Tomorrow, when the sun rises, remember, His mercies are new, not recycled, not leftover, new, fresh, specifically designed for that day's needs. And when the ache comes, not if, when, remember what it really is, not your enemy, but your reminder that you were made for more than this. You were made for living water. Listen, can you hear it? Beneath the shame, beneath the struggle, beneath the years of trying and failing, there's a deeper sound, the sound of living water, flowing, available, waiting. You don't have to clean yourself before you come to this water. The water itself does the cleaning. You don't have to be strong enough to reach it, just thirsty enough to receive it. Your story isn't over. Your wound can heal. Not might, can, will. When you stop trying to heal it yourself and let the healer touch it, the woman at the well left her water jar behind. The very thing she came for. Because she found something better. She ran back to town, the same town she'd been avoiding, and said, "Come see a man who told me everything I ever did." Everything. She didn't hide it anymore. Because when you've tasted living water, shame loses its power. You can leave your jar too. That thing you keep going back to, that broken well that never satisfies. You can leave it and run toward life. I know you're tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of falling. Tired of the weight of it all. But what if the fight isn't yours to fight? What if you've been trying to earn what's already been given? What if freedom isn't about being strong enough, but about being loved enough? And you are loved enough, right now, as you are. In the middle of the mess, tomorrow can be different. Not because you'll be stronger, but because you'll stop trying to be strong. You'll let yourself be carried, be held, be loved. The wound you've carried all these years, it's not your curse. It's the broken place where light can finally enter. And when it does, when grace floods those abandoned rooms of your heart, you'll understand what Jesus meant when He said, "Whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst again." Not because désir dit, but because it finally finds its true home. You were made for this water, this freedom, this love, and it's yours. Not someday, not when you're better. Now, right now. Come and drink. The well is deep, the water is living, and there's more than enough for your thirst. More than enough grace for your shame. More than enough love for your loneliness. More than enough hope for your despair. Come, the water is waiting, and so is the one who loves you.